All right, AJ, you asked for it. Today's deep dive is going to hit all the right notes because we're taking a closer look at the piano.
Oh, the piano. A truly fascinating instrument, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to uncover what makes it so special and why it's been a favorite for composers from, well, everyone really. From Mozart to, like, Billy Joel. There's just
Ah,
something about it.
it's interesting. We see those 88 keys and kind of just accept it, you know?
Yeah.
But there's so much history there, ingenuity, sonic power, all packed into this wooden frame.
I mean, it's not just hammers hitting strings,
Just
right? There's
okay.
got to be more to it.
Oh, there's so much more to it.
So, like, before we had the piano, we had the harpsichord and the clavichord.
Right.
How did we get from there to the piano? What was that like? Leap.
It's kind of a big one, actually. Imagine a world where instruments could only play loud or soft,
Oh, wow.
but not both at the same time. That was life before the piano. Yeah. The harpsichord, for example. It makes a beautiful sound, don't get me wrong, bright, very clear, but it just can't do the dynamics.
Oh, I see.
So you wouldn't get the same expressive range that we're used to today.
Huh. No dramatic quiet parts or like building up to a crescendo?
Exactly. You've got it. And that's where the piano comes in. Invented in the early 1700s by Bartolomeo Cristofori, this guy was a genius.
Uh-huh.
He figured out a way to control the volume using a hammer mechanism. You press the key softer, you get a softer sound piano.
Hmm.
Press it harder forte, a louder sound, hence the name pianoforte.
Oh, it's Italian.
It is. Soft, loud.
That's so cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, and it really was revolutionary.
So he really did change music, huh? By giving it that dynamic range.
Absolutely. Composers had a whole new set of tools. It's like suddenly being able to use all the colors in a painting instead of just, I don't know, black and white.
Wow, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Those quiet, subtle moments hit different when you know a loud part is coming, you know?
Right. It added a whole new dimension of emotion and storytelling to the music.
Okay, so Cristofori invents the piano. Huge step. But it wasn't smooth sailing from there, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did we get from those early pianos to the ones we see, like, in concert halls today?
Well, it was a gradual evolution, for sure. And you can't talk about the piano's development without talking about the composers who were writing for it,
Makes sense.
because they played a huge role in pushing the instrument forward.
I mean, that makes sense. You need someone to actually play the thing to figure out what it can do.
Right. And even someone like Johann Sebastian Bach, for example.
Bach. Wait, seriously?
Yeah, even Bach, the master of Baroque music, had thoughts about the piano.
Wow. I mean, he practically wrote the book on counterpoint.
He did, but even he found the piano's upper register to be, how should I put it, a bit too soft for his liking.
Interesting. So even Bach had notes. I thought he was like the gold standard.
He was, and still is, but his criticism actually ended up being a good thing. It pushed piano makers to improve the instrument's dynamic range even further.
Huh. So even a genius's critique can be helpful. I'm going to remember that.
It's true.
Okay, but back to the piano's evolution. Who else was instrumental in making it what it is today?
So, one name that often gets overlooked is Gottfried Silbermann.
Okay, I've never even heard of him.
He was a German piano maker, really brilliant, and he drew inspiration from Cristofori's work, but he made some significant improvements of his own.
Oh, like what?
Well, for one, he's credited with inventing the precursor to the modern sustain pedal.
Oh, the sustain pedal. That's huge.
It really is.
But wait, explain why it's a big deal for anyone who, like, smashed on piano keys as a kid and doesn't actually know.
Okay, so picture this. You're
Uh,
playing a beautiful melody, right?
Yeah.
But each note just, dies off super quickly.
Oh, yeah.
That's because the sound decays naturally.
Uh-huh.
Now, the sustain pedal, that's what allows those notes to ring out, to blend together, and you get that lovely, lush sound that we associate with so much piano music.
It's like the difference between speaking and singing almost, right? It's more connected.
Yeah, it adds that whole other layer of expression to it. It's amazing.
Totally. It's like you can feel the music flow together instead of being like all choppy.
Exactly. And that's what we call legato playing, those smooth transitions between notes. And it just opened up a whole world of possibilities for composers.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine, like, romantic era piano music without the sustain pedal?
It's hard to even imagine.
It'd be so different.
Completely different. But yeah, speaking of the Romantic era, that's when the piano really took center stage.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's like Chopin, Liszt,
Hmm.
Rachmaninoff.
Exactly. They were pushing the instrument to its limits, writing these incredibly demanding, virtuosic pieces. And that demand for a bigger, more powerful sound. It drove some huge innovations in how pianos were actually made.
Ooh, Get into it. This is the stuff I love. Like, what kind of innovations are we talking about?
Well, they started using stronger materials, for one. Like, instead of just regular wire for the strings, they started using steel wire.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Stronger strings, bigger sound.
Exactly. And because that steel wire could handle way more tension, you could get a much more powerful sound. Like, did you know that the string tension in a modern grand piano can reach up to 20 tons?
Wait, 20 tons?
Seriously, I'm telling you, it's basically like a suspension bridge hanging from those strings.
Wow, that's wild. But okay, so all that tension, that must have been rough on those older pianos, right? The ones that still had wooden frames.
Yeah, not the best combination. Things were probably pretty explosive back then until they figured that out.
Yeah. So how'd they solve that?
Enter the iron frame.
Of course, makes sense.
It's a game changer, really. This super strong iron frame could handle those incredible forces, no problem. And that meant a more powerful, resonant sound and way fewer exploding pianos.
Win-win. But it wasn't all just like brute strength and Industrial Revolution stuff, right? There was still artistry involved in all this.
Oh, absolutely. The artistry was and is essential. I mean, take the Viennese School of Piano Making, for example.
Okay, what's special about them?
Well, their instruments were known for this really unique look. They actually had black keys for the naturals and white keys for the accidentals.
Wait, really? That's like the opposite of how pianos are now.
I know, right? Totally backwards from what we're used to.
So, like, why'd they do that?
Well, part of it was just the materials they were using back then. Ivory, which they used for the white keys, was a lot more expensive, so they used it more sparingly.
Oh, that makes sense.
And let's be honest,
Yeah.
it did give the pianos a really distinctive look.
It's true. They say looks aren't everything, but...
They definitely don't hurt.
Exactly. But, okay, enough about looks. Let's get back to the sound. We talked about the hammer mechanism, the sustain pedal. What about that other pedal down there, the soft pedal? What's his deal?
Ah, yes. The una corda pedal, to be technical.
Fancy.
It's definitely a bit more subtle than the sustain pedal, but it's still a game changer.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So, like, how does it work?
So on a grand piano, when you press the una corda pedal, it actually shifts the entire keyboard slightly to the side.
Wait, hold on. The whole keyboard moves?
It does. I know. It's wild to think about.
That's insane. I had no idea.
And by shifting the keyboard, the hammers end up only hitting 2 of the 3 strings for each note instead of all 3. Or, in some older pianos, it might even just hit a single string. Hence the name una corda, meaning one string.
Oh, that's cool. So what does that actually do to the sound?
It creates this softer, more muted tone. People often describe it as like ethereal or veiled.
Interesting. So it's not just about playing quietly. It's about getting a totally different tone color.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, and what about that middle pedal? The one nobody seems to know what to do with, even if you've played piano for years.
You're talking about the sostenuto pedal.
Yeah, that one. The mysterious middle child of the piano pedals.
That's a good way to put it. And you're right, it's not used as much as the sustain or una corda pedals, but it can do some really cool stuff.
Like what?
Well, unlike the sustain pedal, which lifts all the dampers, the sostenuto pedal lets you sustain specific notes that you're holding down, while the other notes remain unaffected.
Oh, wow. So you could like hold down a bass note with the sostenuto pedal and then play a melody with your other hand and have this really cool layered effect.
Exactly. You've got it. And that makes it super useful for pieces with complex harmonies, or if you want a sustained bass line underneath more intricate melodies. Composers like Debussy and Ravel, they loved using the sostenuto pedal for this kind of thing.
Wow, that's next level pedaling. See, this is why I love this show. It's like, I thought I knew something about pianos and then you hit me with this stuff.
It's really amazing how much control you have over the sound. But we've been talking a lot about the standard grand piano.
Yeah?
But there are so many other types of pianos out there, each with its own quirks and possibilities.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like what about those more, I don't know, unusual members of the piano family? What are some that really stand out? It's like a whole secret world of pianos. What are some of the most interesting ones?
Well, there's this one, it's called the prepared piano. And no, it's not what you think.
Oh, okay, now I'm curious. Not like a prepped for a piano recital.
Nope, not at all. It's not about like tuning it up or anything. It's about changing the sound by putting objects on the strings.
Like on the strings themselves?
Yep. Things like rubber wedges, bolts, even felt.
So like muting the strings or...
Yeah, you can mute them, but you can also get these other really unique effects, percussive sounds, weird harmonics. It's pretty cool.
So you're turning the piano into a whole different instrument, basically.
Exactly. It really pushes the boundaries of what you can do with the piano. And speaking of pushing boundaries, have you heard of the pedal piano?
Oh, yeah. It's like a piano and an organ had a baby.
That's a great way to put it. It's a pretty amazing instrument. Imagine a pianist, right, playing with their hands, but then they've also got this pedal board they're working with their feet.
It's like the ultimate multitasking instrument. How do people even coordinate that?
It takes a lot of practice, that's for sure.
I bet.
But it lets you create these incredibly rich and complex textures in the music.
So you can have the sustained notes from the pedals and then the melodies on the keys.
Right, and you can get really creative with the harmonies. It's a sound you really can't get anywhere else.
Huh. So it's not just for organists who want to, like, practice at home.
Not at all. There's a whole repertoire of music written specifically for pedal piano. It's a whole thing.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to look that up.
You should. There are some truly incredible players out there.
This deep dive has been amazing. I always thought pianos were cool, but now I realize it's a whole world. History, artistry, engineering, it's all there.
It really is. And the skill of the pianists who master this instrument, it's mind-blowing.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, AJ, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of the piano. It's an instrument that's full of surprises, even if you think you know a thing or two about it.
And for anyone else listening, we encourage you to go out and explore the world of the piano a bit more. Listen to different styles, different composers. You might be surprised at what you discover.